Hello everyone, welcome to episode 4 of Flashback Royal Rumble. Here we'll be going over the 1991 Royal Rumble event that took place in Miami in January of 1991. Let's go ahead and get this started. I personally like this one. This was definitely one of the better Rumbles that's been put out over the years, and the show got kicked off to a very great start as the Rockers took on the Orient Express. Okay, this was a great matchup. This is definitely one of the pure definitions of great tag team wrestling. Now, honestly, you don't see tag team wrestling like this nowadays. And but all four of these guys were on their game. They worked tremendously together, and that was definitely better than their WrestleMania 6 match back in 1990. And I mean, the crowd was into it. The commentary for the match was great, and the Rockers ended up winning, and it was definitely a great way to kick off the show. Another thing that I liked about the match, of course, is the 1991 Royal Rumble match. Before we get to the match, another thing that happened was the epic title change between Sergeant Slaughter and the Ultimate Warrior. The Ultimate Warrior was the defending champion at the time, and Sergeant Slaughter was the recently heel-turned Iraqi sympathizer who was looking to become the WWF champion. And after a pretty good matchup, thanks to the Macho King Randy Savage, Sergeant Slaughter became the new WWF champion, much to the dismay of the WWF crowd. Now, the crowd was pretty into it, and they just booed big time when Slaughter won the title. Now the WWF is being represented by an Iraqi sympathizer at the rise of the Gulf War, which was happening at the time. And now we move on to the 1991 Royal Rumble match. This one was another pretty good matchup. This was definitely, I personally liked it. For I believe the second year in the Royal Rumble history, Bret Hart is one of the two starting participants. Of course, I don't believe he lasted as long as he did. He probably lasted a little bit longer. I don't know. I'll have to get back to you on that. But Bret Hart did have a good showing. To me, the breakout star of the Royal Rumble match was the model Rick Martel. Rick Martel lasted about 52 and a half minutes. I believe, definitely one of the longest running Rumble participant at the time, which that record will be broken later on, but we'll get to that later. Overall, it was good, and I didn't have a problem with Hogan going over, since we have an Iraqi sympathizer as the WWF champion now. It seemed that only fitting that the personification of Americana, that being Hulk Hogan, would be going over, thus going ahead to WrestleMania to challenge the WWF champion. So overall, I didn't really see a big problem with the show. Again, it had a great matchup to kick it off. It definitely had a good championship match with a very surprising Slaughter going over. And another thing I would like to point out is the face turn of Virgil. See, at this time, Ted DiBiase and Virgil were in the midst of breaking up. There was immediate tension with Ted DiBiase basically treating Virgil like crap. Having to polish his shoes, dust get lint off his toes when he massages him, and doing all of these degrading stuff to him just because he's the $1 Million Man. And after their tag team match against Dusty and Dustin Rhodes, Ted DiBiase wanted Virgil to pick up the $1 Million Championship belt and put it around his waist. Well, Virgil did pick up the $1 Million title, but instead of putting it around his waist, he just walloped Ted DiBiase right in the head with it, much to the delight of the crowd, thus causing Virgil to face turn, which would lead to their match at WrestleMania 7, in which Roddy Piper would help train Virgil in what was a good underdog story, as some will call it. So, overall, the 1991 Royal Rumble event was a pretty good show, but as we all know, this would be the last year that the 1991 Royal Rumble match would just be a novelty act. Starting next year, that's when something was on the line, and we'll get to that later. But for now, the 1991 Royal Rumble match was still a novelty match that didn't really mean anything. Nothing was really at stake, but that would change later. And next time we will be reviewing the 1992 Royal Rumble match, which was definitely one of my favorite Royal Rumble match, but we'll get to that when we get to that. So until then, and don't forget to leave a comment, subscribe to this channel, and follow me on Twitter at JJMWWE89. We'll see you soon, and until then, take care, y'all.